Let's go ahead and talk about some wide receivers here, some guys that are maybe some deep wide receiver twos, maybe guys that are coming off of disappointing performances, and you might be tilting a little bit. We'll give you that little push over the edge to say, hey, go ahead and plug them back in. It's going to be all right. We already talked about Jarvis Landry, but let's talk about, I'll go ahead and ask you first. Jarvis Landry versus Indianapolis. I know we just threw the take out there. Probably not going to start him this week.
I'm trying not to start him. There's so many guys I would start over Jarvis Landry this week. Justin Jefferson. I mean, let me look at some other names on this list. Justin Jefferson, Will Fuller. I'll still start DJ Moore over him. Darius Slayton. A lot of these guys I'm plugging in over Jarvis Landry if I can.
Let's talk about Marquise Brown against the Bengals. Talked about the easy matchup with when we talked about Mark Ingram here. For Hollywood Brown, I'm willing to flex him because I want that upside in my lineup. I know he's disappointed outside of that week 1 matchup against Cleveland where he had 15 fantasy points, but still hasn't had that explosion. But if it's going to happen, it's going to happen in this game. We know what he can do. And Marquise Brown has one of the highest target shares in the entire NFL for a wide receiver. So when they do pass the ball, it's going to Marquise Brown if it's not Mark Andrews. And so for a guy like that, like he hasn't had less than 6 targets in a game this year. It's going to happen eventually. One of these deep ball attempts is going to connect between Lamar Jackson and Marquise Brown. It's just a matter of time. I've been on Hollywood all season long, all off season long, and I've been saying, hey, he's a buy low candidate. I know he burned you against Kansas City. Probably it didn't put up the numbers you expected against Washington, which was another easy matchup, but I am willing to go back to the well with Marquise.
Yeah, I agree. Not a lot to add there. I mean, Marquise, you said it, 6 or more targets in every single game. He's had a couple decent flex-type weeks. Hasn't gotten into the end zone yet, but he's averaging over 15 yards per reception. We know what he can do down the field. In a good matchup, wouldn't be surprised to see him get those 6 targets, give himself a nice floor, and he could pop one deep, which could make him have a really strong week. So I'm in on Marquise this week.
So how about Jamison Crowder coming back
Joe Flacco
from injury
too.
And putting up
Yikes.
the Joe Flacco start, but 17.4 fantasy points against the Denver Broncos cannot be ignored. 10 targets in that game, caught 7 of them for 104 yards, no touchdown. But as the guy who's kind of the funneled volume, like he's the best receiver that they're gonna have. It's not. Brashad Perriman's not in. It's not Braxton Berrios. Chris Herndon can't catch a ball. It seems like he's just out there to block. So. If there's a guy you're going to start on the Jets, I think it's Jamison Crowder.
Yeah, I'm willing to flex Crowder as well. And it doesn't feel great because Joe Flacco's in the lineup. But we saw Crowder come back from that injury last week. It sounded like he wasn't going to play. Didn't practice all week. Got 85% of snaps. So Crowder seems to be this PPR lord year in and year out. And Crowder, it doesn't matter what the situation is. Doesn't matter how bad the quarterback is, what the matchup is. Somehow Jamison Crowder so often ends up with 10 targets when he's healthy and gets 7 catches for 70 yards. And if that's the situation with Joe Flacco at quarterback, against the Cardinals, I think they are going to have to throw the ball a decent amount. Le'Veon Bell is going to be back this week, so maybe they try to funnel some volume through him as well. At least it looks like he's going to be back this week. He is practicing. So, yeah, I'm willing to flex Jamison Crowder in PPR formats, and I think he could actually give you a decent floor because Flacco is going to rely on him when he tries to throw the ball.
All right, let's talk about a guy that I've had as a buy low candidate. And the schedule's opening up. It's Darius Slayton against Dallas here in Week 5. I was thinking about even putting this guy as my wide receiver start of the week because I think this is the time where we're going to see one of those boom weeks. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen against Dallas that has this prolific offense but can't stop anybody on the defensive side. We've seen Darius Slayton have these boom games. We joke that he only had 4 good games last year, and now everyone wants to crown him the king of New York. But if it's going to be 4 games, if I had to look at the game logs here and just go ahead and circle which ones I think Darius Slayton's going to pop off in, to me it's definitely this one here against Dallas. Do you agree, Alex?
Yeah, man, I'm firing up Slayton. If there was ever a time to do it, it's against the Dallas Cowboys, giving up 36 points a game. If Daniel Jones is going to have a good game this year, it needs to come here against Dallas, or Daniel Jones might be on the hot seat as well.
Sheesh.
And Darius Slayton, you look at his season, he's another huge yards per catch guy. 9 targets, 6 targets, 7 targets, and 7 targets. Here against Dallas, it's going to be a high-volume game. They're going to have some success against the Cowboys. Would not be surprised to see Slayton get 7, 8 targets in this game. If he gets in the end zone and can break a couple big plays, could easily be one of those vintage 100-yard, 1-touchdown games for Darius Slayton. Historically, it seems like Slayton always has his big weeks when we least expect it. Week 1 was against the Pittsburgh Steelers when Saquon had -5 rushing yards halfway through the game, and the Steelers were shutting him down. Somehow Slayton had 30-plus points in that game. This one might seem a little bit too obvious, but you don't want to overthink it. Put Slayton out there. I'm fine to flex him and hope for a big game.
As of right now, Slayton is 85th amongst wide receivers in catchable target rate. Only 69% of his targets have been deemed catchable. But despite all that, he's still 6th in the league in routes run. He's top 20 in targets, top 20 in air yards, actually 11th amongst wide receivers in air yards share now that Shepard is out of the lineup. So I'm willing to roll the dice here on Slayton, put some chips in on him. Let's talk about Deebo Samuel. Was kind of getting eased into that Sunday night game against Philadelphia. Now this week, he goes against the Miami Dolphins. Are you willing to plug Deebo right back in? I'm kind of concerned that he's still going to be slowly eased in now that we're seeing Brandon Ayuk emerge on the other side.
Yeah, I'm going to wait. I mean, Deebo, I think he's going to be a great rest of season play, but against Miami, I do expect the Niners to win this game. I think Deebo's going to get some touches, might make a couple plays, but unless he gets in the end zone, I don't think he's going to have the volume in this game to make it happen. And if I'm going to bet on someone to get in the end zone, with Deebo getting seemingly limited snaps, I'll check on his snap counts here really quickly as well.
34%.
Okay. Yeah, 34%, no chance. So I'm going to go on another high upside option over Deebo, Michael Gallup, Darius Slayton, who we just talked about, even maybe T.Y. Hilton, it feels bad to say. But I'd probably go with those guys over Deebo, at least for one more week. Let's see him on the field a little bit more.
Yeah, and it seems like the passing of the torch, the changing of the old guard is happening here amongst these older wide receivers. We got Julio Jones, seemingly can't stay healthy. And in the game, when he's out there, he's great because he's Julio Jones. But we're starting to see some of that decline. Questions are coming up about his health, not just this year, but long term. And then, the Falcons as an organization are kind of imploding right now. So we'll see what happens with Julio. Definitely trying to sell in Dynasty if I can. And then beyond that, we got some other older wide receivers that just haven't been able to hit this year. It's A.J. Green, T.Y. Hilton, Marvin Jones. Marvin Jones is essentially nothing now. He has 19 targets on the year. What is happening with these guys? It's just, I don't know if it's a sign of age.
It's because I have 3 of them on my team in our home league. I have Julio Jones, T.Y. Hilton, and Marvin Jones. Somehow I'm 2-2. So hopefully a couple of those guys can bounce back. I need it.
Absolutely brutal. I know we were expecting big things. We were picking up Marvin Jones in the mid-rounds as a guy that can give you some boom upside. But as of right now, I look at what he's done, his production so far, and he's droppable.